We're a group of GenXers learning about our ADHD and neurodiversity later in life. Join us as we discuss interesting clips we find online and how they relate to our own life experiences. Welcome to This Is How My Brain Works.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of This Is How My Brain Works. I'm Sarah, and today I'm joined by Michael and Rudy Rudofsky. I have a clip for you guys. It's super, super special. It's by the Holderness Family, who maybe you know of. It's about the two ADHDers who are home alone. The girls are out of town, and sort of what happens. So it's a little bit funny, and I hope you enjoy it. Here we go.
The girls are out of town this week. Me, my son, and both of our ADHDs are the only ones here. What does that mean?
The odds of us burning the house down have gone up significantly.
Here's how we're going to fix that, okay? Every time we do something responsible, we're going to celebrate like we just won the Super Bowl. If you want some sausage, I'm just going to turn the stove off. Let's go! Come on! Yeah! Woo! Yeah! Come on! Oh my gosh. Yeah! You turn the oven off. Oh my God. Yeah! The oven off works. So bottom line, doing like basic chores for people with ADHD can be kind of tough unless you add a little bit of reward because it gives us that dopamine hit. You learn all about that in my new book, ADHD is Awesome. Are you washing dishes, buddy?
Yeah.
Let's go! Yeah! Let's go!
Some of the stuff that we saw in that clip, for those of you who are just listening along at home, was the son closing cabinet doors and then doing the worm on the ground because he got the cabinet doors closed, or washing some dishes and cheering for that. So maybe it's a hack to cheer yourself on when you get little small miracles, small wins in your home. Anyway, guys.
How many cabinets I've hit my head on where it's just me forgetting to close it, and then I get so angry. But then I realize it's just me. Like it's a fight against myself to try and remember to do things.
I'm curious as to this because this is very interesting to me because, you know, we spend so much time in the shame space of like, I forgot to do this. I forgot to do that. Oh, look, I left this thing out. And so instead of getting a dopamine hit, we're getting what? A shame hit. And that's, damn it, that, you know, that's like either, it's either like intensifying or like, fortifying a negative narrative feeling about ourselves, all of that. And, you know, because you watch that video and it's like, oh, that's funny. They're being cheesy. They're celebrating these mundane things. But there is something very real about creating a different experience around doing those mundane things. Like that dopamine hit, I think, rewires you to feel better, even if it's like turning off the stove or something. I think I know that there's like more like when he said the dopamine hit, I know he understands the importance of what they're doing because it just seems like some funny little like, this is hilarious, this is pure comedy, but I think there's something really profound in that approach.
I agree. And I ran across a page earlier this week with a therapist who said, if your kid has ADHD, celebrate the littlest things and really don't pay attention to the things they're doing wrong. Just praise the littlest thing. And I've also heard this with depression. So for example, if a kid is depressed and, you know, they don't want to get out of bed, one of the things the therapist said was praise them for swinging their feet for taking the covers off, swinging their feet and putting them on the floor, even if they promptly put their feet back in bed and pull the covers back up over their head. And great job trying to get out of bed. You know, I'm proud of you, and just leaving it at that. And it sounds really stupid, but for people who have had kids with depression or who've struggled through that, those are the things that, you know, because the kid is already with ADHD as well, we're already beating ourselves up for leaving the cabinet doors open and hitting our heads on them. So when we can just acknowledge, like, let's say we duck under the cabinet door and then close it, we're like, woohoo, maybe that's when we should be cheering ourselves on.
You know, and and I think my guess is that by doing that over time, not only do you have a little bit, you have a more improved kind of self-image and self-worth, but then I'm wondering if there's any kind of like behavior change that comes with that, as far as like just remembering to do certain things, or if, if that's even a thing. But I I just I also think about what you're saying, Sarah, as far as celebrating some of these small things. You know, I think back on like my parents or our parents' generation, and that would be like considered coddling, and like, why would you reward
Why don't you just
that?
give everybody a trophy for
Why would you
participating?
reward that kind of thing? Why? Because they haven't really accomplished anything. Why are you rewarding that? But there is something to that, that positive reinforcement and dopamine hit that is so, like, it's like gold to someone that's neurodiverse and that struggles for that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have as
Well, here's the deal. The celebration comes from a sense of completion, finishing a project. We have so many things oftentimes that are sort of they're kind of they're open, right? Like we've got a lot of doors open because we want to be, but we're not shutting all the doors all the time. We just have a lot of things going on at once. And once we, whether it's with medication or not with medication, and I found with medication for me, sometimes I'm focused more and can start shutting those doors. And I feel so accomplished that I've finished something. I've actually finished something. I actually put the pliers away. I put them away. I can't even believe it. Now, if I remember that I put them away, so that when I go to get them, thinking that I left them out on the table, but then forgetting that I put them back in the place they should be, that'll be a huge accomplishment. But that being said, I sometimes feel like there's so many things that are incomplete. So, and I think I've mentioned this before, I'll just be walking and see a piece of paper on the ground. It may stay there for 2 days. No one else picks it up. For whatever reason, I feel like but my brain doesn't register until a moment comes where it's like, stop, pick that piece of paper up. And once I do, there's a small piece of me that feels like, man, you did something. You actually noticed, picked it up, and threw it away. That kind of is a good feeling. Like, I feel like, I know this is crazy to say, but I feel like I'm an adult.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Being
Although I am an
responsible.
adult, but
You're being responsible. Yeah.
responsible. I'm a responsible human being, right? And I'm taking care of things, and it makes me feel good. Like putting my clothes away, doing my laundry, putting my clothes away, cleaning the kitchen, cleaning the car out. Those things feel good. Like I've done something, especially when I have a list of things in my head that are like, you need to wash the car, you need to vacuum this, she told you you need to do this, you need to do your laundry, you don't have this, oh, you need to go pick this up, and you need to do this. And when you have those list of things, and then you're like, oh, I got that accomplished, right? My brain's not thinking about that anymore. I can take that out of that hamster wheel that's going around. It's just, it feels good. You're decluttering, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's what the excitement and the giddiness truthfully comes from being accomplished and actually feeling like I finished something. I went from beginning to end. And I know I relate it so much to the golf course, but I always start something and usually finish it. And if I don't, I don't feel bad about it because I know I'll be there the next day. But there's such a definition between, there's just so much accomplishment out there each day. You could visualize it,
Do you think there's a
And-
difference for you in terms of your to-do list for things that require being active outside versus our more mental work? So like, do you have a better dopamine hit, for example, mowing the sixth tee versus getting your taxes done. Although I can't, I think of some bookkeeping like, is there a difference for you, and is one easier than another?
Yes, of course. No one wants, I don't want to do the paperwork. I'm so bad at the
The
paperwork.
mental thing, I think, because it is more challenging
And
for
it's
an
not,
ADHD
you
brain.
can't visualize it. It's
Yeah.
not, you can't touch it the same way. It's just moving numbers on a page.
Unless you take
versus-
like, okay, however many years you go back in taxes, like I can get rid of this year now, and that goes to the shredder. That feels good.
That's a physical thing. You're picking it
That
up.
is a physical thing.
Right.
But actually but Sarah, that's an interesting question as far as like the mental thing, because that's really where I'll struggle, because I'll
Mhm.
perseverate.
Mhm.
I will get analysis paralysis. I will look at it'll just be too much, and then
I
there's
really like stuff I can feel and
Yeah.
touch and see.
the physical stuff for sure, like the chores. I mean, I do a ton of that around the house and I feel good about it. And here's where I get hung up though. If I don't get recognized for it, or if someone else doesn't recognize like that all that just happened, then that to me that then I have to battle that a little bit. I have to be
But
like,
that's when you announce it. That's when you announce
well,
it, and you
And do the
hey,
touchdown.
did you see that rock wall?
that's
No
true.
one mentioned that rock wall.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, you know what? I actually did that the other day. My wife put together these chores at the beginning of the week, and I was included on the chores, and I was all bent out of shape on it because I was like, oh, on top of all this other stuff that I do at the house, I now have these chores on top of it. And I had to kind of get over some stuff myself. And anyway, well, I did my chores like midweek, and I was like, who else is done with their chores for the week besides me? Am I the only one? And so I do announce it, and I do sometimes my wife will say like, gosh, you need so much recognition. And I'm like, yeah, I suppose I do, but I don't know that for me to have like feel purposeful, I think I have to kind of like be more intrinsic about it, I think, and more self-fulfilled, and do those internal celebrations and have that be enough, rather than like it doesn't matter until someone recognizes me for it, because um I need that validation. Um I need that attaboy. I need the recognition because of these other areas that I struggle in. Um, you know, and I'm battling feeling good about that. It's like I need some positive stuff. And if someone thinks like, well, you should have done that, or like, oh, I didn't notice that you did that, you know,
I think it
sometimes
gets back to that dopamine that we really need in our brain. So, like, again, I hear and I'm resonating with like, what's wrong with me that I need to be coddled into doing these things that all these responsibilities that everybody else just does on their own.
Right.
But maybe that's the wrong, we need to flip it on its head. There's nothing wrong with us that we need to be coddled. In fact, our dopamine, the need for that dopamine that is a little bit greater than other brains, there's nothing wrong with us. In fact, just acknowledging that we need that, maybe we shouldn't be shaming ourselves about it. And that's funny because I weirdly, while you were talking, have you guys ever played Spoons? It's a card game where you have the spoon, and when you get the whatever, I forget the rules, but you have the 4 of a kind or whatever in your hand. So then you take one spoon, and it's like musical chairs. There's one too few spoons. So you have to kind of slowly take the spoon when you've got it. And then once you see that someone's taken a spoon, you take a spoon. And so then the person without a spoon is left without a spoon.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought of this. Yeah, exactly. I was last.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like that. It's like maybe having a game where our chores are, once you've done your chores, you take the spoon, and whoever is last to do their chores doesn't get it. And so while it might make them feel bad that, oh crap, I didn't get a spoon this week, really it can be turned on its head. The person who didn't get the spoon, we're going to laugh and tease you, but it may incentivize them next week to get their chores done faster, so they get the spoon first.
It's really interesting you're mentioning this, Sarah, because my thought was, well, this is Ginger's program that she's put. I'm not going to like you know, this, even though I'm gonna like, I had my little pouty session. I got over it and I did my chores and then I celebrated it. But I did feel that, Sarah. I felt like, you know what, this thing isn't gamified. This thing, there's no reward system to this. That's really
I
gonna,
really like a reward.
especially with the kids, you know, there's gotta be,
I dare you
Yes.
to implement the spoon game and see what happens.
yeah. Well, I
Um,
mean, I did read this thing though about like, um, to like over rewarding for things. And as far as like, you
I
know,
don't believe in that.
candy bars, money, whatever. I mean, it should be like, I think rewarding with positive encouragement and thanks and gratitude is fantastic. But like, you know, whereas the kids are going to expect like whatever it is, candy, ice cream, pizza, you know, money. There is a certain amount of like, this is part of living in this household and being part of this household, and there needs to be some sort of like ownership of that. But even that, I think like, what is the reward? And I think it is showing appreciation and gratitude towards your kid. I think that goes a long way, because being an ADHDer and things coming hard, and you know, having maybe a higher expectation of someone else to grind through something, or to have that grittiness that we have to like get through these projects, even though we might have a number of open-ended ones. Sometimes I'll put that same kind of expectation on my kids or my wife, where it's just like, why isn't the broom put away, or what's going on here or there, and so what am I projecting out,
mm.
and what are they hearing as criticism, or me not being satisfied, or um with what they're doing. And so,
Wait, are you saying you get upset because you're giving these chores and then you sort of like you kind of rub it in their face when you've done them, or you're like, I did mine, why isn't like are
no,
other people on board, or what's going
no,
on?
that's a good question. I wasn't rubbing it in anyone's face. I think I was making a point though, as far as like, I did, you know, maybe I might have been a little pouty about this, but I finished mine. Who else is doing their chores? If this is a household program that we're doing, are we doing it? What's going on?
I tried to implement several things, had a list of things, and I, like the first day, no one. And then I went to implement things like, hey, we said 10 o'clock, phones. And then it was a whole situation. And it never really materialized.
So is it do you need a proper kind of like recognition system or reward system? Like how do you get buy-in
It's
on the
hard with
program?
kids. It's hard with kids because I think, and we're going kind of off the subject a little bit, but as parents, we're just a different parenting generation, and the way that we reward our kids, you know, I think we didn't get a lot of rewards as you know, make your bed. There's no
Star on the
reward for making your bed.
I got a
There's
star on the
no
poster board.
reward. What
Did
about
you?
doing your homework? Was there rewards for doing your homework? No, not for me. There was no reward for doing things that we felt like were chores.
The reward is
You
the
just
feeling
did
of
them.
accomplishment.
Yeah,
Yeah, but even then, I
the
didn't feel
ideal
like
thing,
accomplishment.
right?
It was like you just did it. Something you did. Like you take your plates from the table to the kitchen, you wash them off, and you put them in the dishwasher. There was no like, if you do that, you get dessert. Maybe sometimes, but hardly ever. Like you just did things. I feel these days with kids, it's like we constantly have to give them some sort of incentive or reward for them to, and maybe it's our fault in just how we've done it, but I feel like we're constantly having to give rewards or incentives to kids to just get them to do things.
Well, that's really why I liked this clip. There was two aspects to the treat it like it's a touchdown or you're watching the Super Bowl. One, the reward isn't candy that's going to
Right.
make your teeth rot. It's not money that's you're going to come to expect. It's
Totally.
simply
A
being
good feeling.
And two, the kid closed the drawer or the door, the cabinet, and then he did his own celebration. So it kind of gets to that point that you're making, Michael, of I want someone to externally validate me or give me a pat on the back that I did this. And at the same time, or at least for me, I'll personalize it. I feel a little bit like what's up that I need this external validation. So by doing this happy dance when I get something done, I'm validating myself and starting that process of that, you know, and that's kind of like the spoon. If I finish my chores and I'm the first to get a spoon, that's kind of exciting. And
Well,
it's
yeah.
a
And
reward that's meaningless, but not, it's more of a, it hits me. So I'm thinking I might do the spoon
no,
trick
I think
for
there's a
Saturday.
lot to this for sure, because it is like, well, why did I have that door open in the first place? Or why did I have this, you know, forget to do this thing in the first place? And then you're beating yourself up. You know, the celebration of it. I think it just, there's some self-compassion that goes along with it too, which is massive.
I would not have had any of that self-compassion without this group. And talking through our daily struggles, honestly, because I give myself so much more slack when I forget something, and I'm able to say to the family and laugh about, I can't find my keys, or I forgot to do that. I don't feel as ashamed when I've been told to do something and it's been 4 days since I've done it or even thought about it. And I'm just honestly like, that hasn't crossed my brain since the day you told me. Honestly. Now, before, it would be just complete internal struggle, strife, fighting, internal fighting, and like inside my brain, like, why didn't you get that done? You know, you should be ashamed of yourself. She told you 2 days ago. You can't even remember that she told you that, or, you know, how did it slip your brain for 4 days? Like, you needed her to remind you. Should you have written that down? No, honestly, and it's less and less and less, because I'm more comfortable in understanding how my brain works.
Right.
And
You know
I understand. I mean, that's the truth. So I
You know
can
how
just
often
be
I
more
s-
honest.
I
Like,
say to my family, this is how my brain works, and I say it to myself. The title of our podcast has been a balm for my soul. So thank you, Michael, because I'm going to give Michael credit for this title, although it might have been Rudy. Was it Mike?
I
Who
think it was Krista.
was it?
Not
Sorry, Krista.
I think Krista kind of like, she said she kept
no,
saying
it was
that.
you and I before Krista.
Yeah, I think it
We
was
were talking,
around.
you and I were just having a
Oh, right.
conversation, and I said to Michael, I said, you know what, that's just how my brain works.
Right.
And so Michael was like, that's perfect. This is how our
my
brain
brain works. And I use it to kind of explain to others, like, hey, I said X, Y, or Z that was so brutally honest, and I didn't mean that. And then I can say to myself, that's just how my brain works, is to go to that place or to forget that thing or to need the dopamine hit to do my homework or my chores.
You know what else? Even in conversations with people you don't even know. If you feel, you know, it's, you know, over the last 6 months, it's happened where I've said, this is how my brain works. Like, if I have to explain, like, you know, I tell crazy stories and I go off on tangents, whatnot. I get to a point where I'm like, this is just how my brain works. Like, this is my thought process. And it sort of softens the situation. And it feels like there's a comfortable sort of feeling with the people that you're talking to. Like, if someone said that to me, like, you know, I did this, and this is just how my brain works, I'd be like, totally.
Well,
You
there's a
know,
self-awareness
I wouldn't
piece to
think to
that, right?
myself, you're a crazy MF. You know, like, you're nuts.
Oh, I might think that too about myself and about others, but that's okay. It allows that self-awareness prong that Michael just said, chimed in with, there's a self-awareness to it. There's also a gentleness to it and a acknowledgement that this might not be how your brain works. This might not be landing for you. And I'm receptive,
Right.
hearing how your brain, it opens up the path to how does your brain work without being intrusive. And
It's an
how does your brain
invitation.
work? Tell me. It's, you know,
It's an invitation just to say, hey, look, my brain doesn't work like your brain. The story I just told you was a little off kilter, perhaps, or, you know, sometimes I like to speak in accents, or, you know, whatever it may be, and you just say, that's how my brain
oh,
works.
honey, child, I don't know what you're talking about with accents.
I don't know if you, speaking of accents, I don't know, there's, it's called College, Friends from College. It's on Hulu, I think. But anytime, Keegan, what's his name?
Keegan-Michael Key.
Yeah, he's,
Hilarious.
anytime he gets in like an uncomfortable situation, he does like a, hey, everybody, I didn't mean to say, he does like a voice.
A foghorn leghorn?
It makes me laugh so hard because it was established in one of the early episodes that when he feels uncomfortable or nervous, he goes into some weird accent. And so over the last like 7 episodes, there's always like a point where he's uncomfortable or like something's going on, and he goes into these accents where people are just like, okay, and
That would
that's how the
be-
brain works.
That would be a great other like full-on episode, is like where we go when we're uncomfortable, because it is
I
that
go
type
to
of
my
thing.
room alone, close the door, pull the covers up over my head, and stream whatever crime mystery thing I can watch.
Ah,
Yeah.
that's good. I'd
Like
probably go start organizing something.
Oh, no.
Just to quickly get back, just to get back to the elation of the completing of something and rewarding yourself with a dance or doing the worm on the floor, like those things are really paramount. I know the feeling when I've completed something. I will say there have been times where knowing that the possibility of failure or not completing those tasks in a timely fashion is devastating and feels like failure sometimes. And it's like I know that I've spent so much energy sometimes preventing that from happening, like not to fail. I don't want to fail. This has got to go right because I don't want other people to see me as having not accomplished or not completed something some way. And so I think sometimes failures have been so devastating in the past when you just feel like I should have completed that and I didn't. And I had plenty of time and I waited too long. And it's like you're beating yourself up about it. But just knowing that the completion of something makes you feel so good that we strive so hard to please people and to complete things. It's just sometimes, our brain doesn't allow us because we're trying to do everything for everyone all the time,
Which is why, again, this is so powerful, this clip where, they're celebrating all the, the seemingly very basic, simple, mundane things. And then you're not getting into that shame space. You're giving yourself just enough dopamine to keep in a good place with yourself and with others, not as stressful. Because when you're beating yourself up and you get into that shame place, you don't react pleasantly
No.
to other people when they interact with you. There's all that subtext.
Nuts, actually.
Well, and the unfortunate truth is perfectionism then sort of sprinkles in there. And so even though completion sometimes you've completed something, for me, I found that it hasn't been quite the way I wanted it, like, yeah, I completed it. And I do feel good about that, but I know I could have done more.
Oh, sure.
I didn't give it, and that was what I was told as a kid. Like, he can give more. He just can't pay attention, or he can't, he's got all the tools. He can do it. He's just not giving the effort.
He's not applying himself.
He's not applying himself.
And on that note, it is time to wrap it up. So I'm going to wrap it up so I want to just thank the Holderness family for putting that video out there. And more specifically, I'm going to plug the book that they wrote, which is ADHD is Awesome. And he says, I wrote this book for the kid on the playground with ADHD who feels broken and whose parents are having a tough time, because I was that kid.
Wow.
And I think we could all feel that. So really, in our show notes, we'll have a link to the Holderness family and to that book so that you can get that for your kids. And I want everyone at home listening or watching on YouTube to know that you can check off doing your ADHD hack and self-affirmations for this week and do a little dance and Make a little love. Get down tonight.
Love it.
All right. Bye, guys. Have a great week.
Bye.
Thanks all.
If you like this episode of This Is How My Brain Works, please like, subscribe, and share. For more info on today's clip, the hosts, and our podcast, check out the show notes. Thanks for listening.